Welcome back to Tranquility du Jour, nourishing conversations about living a full and meaningful life with doses of tranquility. This is episode 584, Journey to Stage, and I'm your host, Kimberly Wilson, bringing you tranquility through this medium since 2005. Today, I wanted to share my nearly year-long journey to the ballet stage. The challenges, the joys, the time and energy commitment, and more, along with some really great resources to help you connect with various teachers and practitioners, and in case inside of you, there's also that dream, right? So I also have a worksheet that you can download if you go to kimberlywilson.com/584, and I'll have some journaling questions for you at the end of this episode, just to kind of help as we think about reconnecting with these childhood passions or reconnecting with a part of ourselves that may have been dormant for a little bit. So I'm so excited to share this episode with you. I am fresh back from Miami, and you can tell a bit congested. And, let's jump right on in. So, one thing I want to share before I talk a little bit about my journey is that on Saturday, we are offering you a journey, which is the mid-year virtual retreat. So this is a chance to spend 2 hours live with a 1-hour pre-recorded yoga and meditation video. And what we do during this particular one, which I really love, because can you believe we're at the mid-year mark? We are halfway through 2022. It almost just doesn't even seem possible. And what I like to really do in this one is do some reflection. Okay, how's it feeling, right? We met at New Year's. We had all these hopes and dreams. How are they feeling? We're halfway through. And what do you have on the horizon? What are you excited about? We talk about the 10 types of wellness. Of course, we do some kind of visioning work and some reflection and some creative play. So if you are interested, would love to have you join us. And if you're not free on the 9th, which is a Saturday, because this is recorded on 4th of July, then no worries. You can still sign up and you will get the replay. So would love to have you if you're available, because this is the second to last one this year. The next one will be fall, and that will happen in October. And then that's it for virtual retreats for 2022. So save the date and come on out if you are available. And you can find out more in the show notes or at kimberlywilson.com/virtual retreats. And then also a gentle reminder to subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast app. Of course, there's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon. I have a link to them in the show notes. And then if you're new to Tranquility du Jour, a big, big welcome. It's always a treat to have new listeners, and I really value my longtime listeners. I know we have some people who have listened to every single episode, which is amazing. And those of you who are new, or even if you're not new, but you just want a little refresher on the philosophy or, kind of like what it is that we're doing over here. And head on over to kimberlywilson.com/new, and you'll find lots of fun things, including a manifesto, some information on the 5 Tranquility du Jour tenets, things along those lines. So would love to have you join us over there. Make sure you're signed up for Love Notes so that you get little doses of love into your inbox. I'll be sending one this week, of course. And I just want to, say a big, big thank you for listening, especially some of you who have been listening for so long. I'm so, so grateful. Okay. Ballet. All right. So I wanted to let you know that over in the show notes, also kimberlywilson.com/584, you will find the link to the YouTube video of my ballet solo that happened on June 30th, which also happened to be my 49th birthday. Now, when Julie of Broche Ballet, and I'll have a link to her in the show notes, whenever she put this out, and I must have seen it, I don't know, on Instagram, not even sure. When she put this out, I was like, oh my gosh, how fun, a ballet festival. And I don't even know if I realized there was an opportunity to perform. I just was so excited for an adult ballet event, right? And so as soon as it went up, and I think she started offering it maybe in September of last year. I must have been the first one to sign up. I signed up so fast. I was so excited about this, and then started talking to my private teacher, who I adore. His name is Sean Kelly. He's out of New York City, and he's just like so helpful. He's been everything during this whole process. And anyway, so I started talking to him, about like, hey, I kind of want to do the solo. There's this adult ballet festival. And I looked back and it was September 26th, where I was like, so I found this music. I really kind of like the Lilac Fairy music. And what do you think? Right? So then he just whips together this choreography. So that's kind of how Lilac Fairy started. But I want to just give you, before I kind of talk more about Lilac Fairy, just give you a little history, right? Because for some people, it might feel like, what is this ballet thing? Like, you did yoga for 20 years. Like, what's this about? So I just want to give a little context around it. And I also want to share a quote that is so powerful and so deep, so meaningful. And I love sharing this with people, as they're thinking about creating anything, dance or what have you. So Martha Graham: there is a vitality, a life force, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And there is only one of you in all time. This expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and will be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, not how it compares with other expression. It is your business to keep it yours clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work. You have to keep open and aware directly to the urges that motivate you. Keep the channel open. No artist is pleased. There is no satisfaction whatever at any time. There is only a queer, divine dissatisfaction, a blessed unrest that keeps us marching and makes us more alive than the others. Martha Graham. And you know what I really love about this? And I typically will just read the first part, where it talks about, like, if you do not bring your work into the world, like, your expression's unique, it will never exist. And the world will not have it. And that's, like, so sad, right? So I love this as we think about, well, what do I have to offer, as a 49-year-old ballerina, or a, stay-at-home mom who has decided to take up painting, or someone who has just recently retired and has decided to, take up jewelry making. And, it's like, maybe you've never done any of these things. Well, you're going to have a unique spin on it. And that's what I really love about Martha Graham's quote. And I really like this thing that's like, okay, no artist is pleased. There's no satisfaction whatever at any time. I mean, because we can always do better, right? And that's something that came up a lot in working with my peak performance coach, who I hired, and I'll talk about in a moment. We just had 3 sessions, but it was really lovely as we talked about the challenge for me between perfection and play, right? Because I want things to be perfect. I want to nail it. I want to be on the music. I want to have the toe pointed. I want to have the arm turned out, the right ballet hand, all that sort of stuff. The amount of things to think about is just crazy. And she was like, play. This is about play. You want to be enjoying it. And I remember my teacher, Sean, it's like, you have to just show the audience that you are just loving it. You're so in it. But I'm like, inside, I'm crying, But I have to say, the night of the performance, I really was enjoying it. I really was fully in my body. So that was nice, because that has not always been the case, especially with these practices, which I will turn to talking about now. All right, so I performed ballet. So I performed in recitals in grade school and in junior high. Loved me some ballet. I got onto point in, I think, late grade school, and then again in junior high. And then in high school, I was on the pom team. So, we had the little pom-poms, and we danced, right, during halftime. So that was, again, continued performance. Okay, well, since then, I haven't performed, and that's fine. It wasn't necessarily something that I thought I was missing in my life. But, whenever I started going back to ballet regularly in 2018, January 2018, a friend of mine, Carol, and we went to the Washington Ballet. I was like, hey, I'm going to take a beginner ballet class. Do you want to come? She's like, sure. She'd never done ballet, and she joined me. And it was a beginner ballet class, but it was really not a beginner ballet class. So kind of flailed around, did my best, and I've kind of been hooked ever since. Now, between, my junior high days and 2018, I had taken some courses here and there, like a 12-week course through a local school here. Gosh, that was probably 15, 20 years ago. And then occasional drop-in classes, maybe like 5 total, right? So but when I went back in 2018, I was pretty regular, at least once a week, sometimes 2 to 3 times a week. Now, when the pandemic hit, honey, it's just ballet, ballet, ballet. So, one thing that Washington Ballet offered in 2019, the summer before the pandemic, was a little ballet boot camp. And it was so cool. So we got to learn a piece of choreography from one of the teachers and perform it. And we learned a 55-second piece from Don Q. And it was very fast, and I have a link to it in the show notes so you can actually see my performance in it. So that was 2019. It was so fun. It was just some teachers came, people's partners, parents, kids, things along those lines. And then, we just broke out into groups and maybe 6 or 8 of us performed at a time. Very sweet, right? So, that was just really fun. And I was like, I wish there were more opportunities for adult ballerinas, because the thing about ballet is, say as opposed to yoga, is you prepare for a performance, right? So you're not practicing just for practicing's sake. I mean, yes, it's beautiful. It feels good in your body, et cetera, but you're practicing also, for the ultimate, showcase of it, right? Even if it's just in your living room, but you're learning choreography, right? Which is a little different than doing bar exercises or stuff in the center, which is all very hard. But, that's not necessarily, you're not taking that to the stage, so to speak, right? So, 2019, do that, love it. And then, of course, the pandemic hits. And I remember walking with my yoga mat to a yoga studio March, right after everything was going down. And, it said online that the class was still happening. I was like, let me get one class in before things shut down. Well, I get there and the studio's closed. So I've not been to an in-person yoga class since March of 2020. And so then I was just like, okay, we all switch right to online. And so I was taking online yoga and I was taking online ballet. And I was taking online ballet out of a wonderful studio, Ballet Academy East, which I have linked in the show notes, out of New York. And I'd taken an in-person class there maybe in 2018, really loved it. And anyway, I am taking these classes, pretty much daily, yoga and ballet, and become really enamored with the teacher, Sean Kelly. He's just so good. He's so clear and concise, and he's so, so sweet. So the Coterie, my year-long program, we've had a private class with him this year and last year, and it's just such a treat because he's a big deal. I mean, he's done so much in his career, including being a principal dancer for Houston Ballet and, so much. I cannot sing his praises enough. And I just think he's just such a beautiful spirit. And so I really honed in on him. And Tim, at one point, this is probably a few months in, when I'm like, I have ballet with Sean tonight. He's like, you should reach out to him and see if he does private lessons. And I was like, I hadn't thought about that. So I stalk him on LinkedIn and I find him and I reach out and he's totally open to it. And we've been working together ever since. So it's almost been 2 years that we've worked together privately. I still take his classes through Ballet Academy East. And then I also take other classes, through Broche Ballet, who is the lovely lady, Julie, who put on this festival through Maryland Youth Ballet, through Washington Ballet, through Joffrey Ballet. But I'd say my go-to from a pretty much weekly perspective is Ballet Academy East and Broche. Those are my two. And then also, of course, Vitality Ballet is another place that has online classes, and I do private lessons with her also. And again, I've linked all these in the show notes. So I go back to, ballet regularly 2020. I start working with Sean later in 2020, around August of 2020. And then in 2021, I interview Jojo from the Adult Ballet Collective out of Australia, and I'll put a link to that podcast in the show notes. And we talk about the ballet lifestyle, which I just thought was a really fun topic. And and she was offering at the time these 3-hour classes where you would learn a piece from Sleeping Beauty or, the Nutcracker, different ballets. And so I was doing those, which was really, really fun. And then, I must have seen, again, I'm not really sure, Instagram somewhere, that Julie was doing this in 2022. And I was just on it, so excited about it. So Sean and I, again, end of September, so a year after we've been working together privately, I'm like, Sean, I want to do a piece on the stage. And I really liked Lilac Fairy. I had done it with JoJo, the woman who ran, and I think she's just taking a little pause right now, but will run Adult Ballet Collective. And I had just done it and really, really liked it. The music is just stunning. You guys probably know it, and if you don't, you'll hear it in the video. It's just really gorgeous, juicy music. Anyway, so I tell him that, and then he pulls together. Immediately, he's got this great choreography, right? And so we worked on it for, really through October. And then he left in early November to go to Australia for a few months to help run an American in Paris on Broadway, or, that was touring there. Okay, so I knew I was going to be away from him for 3 months. I'm like, oh my gosh, right? So, got the choreography down, worked on it, and then I just kind of practiced it on my own for 3 months, right, while he was away. And then when he came back in February, we started incorporating it into our weekly sessions, right? So we would do a bar and then incorporate it into class for the center work. So that's great. That's February. And then early March, I go up to New York. And I do a 2.5, 3 hour practice. I think it was a 3 hour practice with him. And I'm a bit defeated. It's not very polished looking, despite the fact that I pretty much kind of know the choreography. You can tell I'm still really thinking. I'm still very robotic. It just was oh, okay, I've got a lot of work to do. But, it was okay. I had a few months, but I just was hoping to be a little further along. So, I continue working with him weekly, and I work with my private point teacher, who I just started working with in December or January, Vanessa from Vitality Ballet. And, I show her the choreography, and we just incorporate some pieces into the work that we're doing just to kind of help with the flow and things along those lines. And then I go back late April. And it's kind of, I won't say night and day, but kind of night and day. And the fact that I was able to really, I think, embrace the choreography and be a bit more fluid. You can tell from the practice videos that Sean would record that it's okay, I wasn't quite thinking quite as much. And it was a bit more polished. I also started working with Olia from the Dancer Next Door. And she was really great because we just did 6 sessions, but we really just focused on the choreography. And she would bring up, okay, well, where are you looking there? Or what are your arms supposed to do between these 2 pieces? Stuff that I was just doing, but I wasn't really conscious about. So she was very helpful in polishing it. And then, I see online, probably Instagram, Elizabeth Sterling, who does this wonderful work called, her business is called The Whole Point with an E at the end. And she does peak performance coaching, hypnosis, which we never did, but tapping and all sorts of really great stuff. And I just did 3 sessions. I bought a 3-session pack with her, and it was really lovely because she's just the sweetest, gentlest person who, again, all these people that I worked with, they get it. They have tried to learn choreography. They've been on stage, etc. And so I think that it was really helpful to have this kind of like team of people. So then I went back up and saw Sean mid-June, and we had a 4-hour practice. And that's when I really kind of tightened, polished things up as much as I possibly could, and then performed June 30th. So whenever I think about time, I would say, like, just for this piece alone, not ballet in general, but just for this piece alone, 1 to 3 hours a week. Okay, so it's not huge, but over 6 months, right? So how many months is that? It's like 26. How many weeks? So that's like 26 weeks, right? Say 1 to 3. So it's anywhere from 26 to 100 hours that I worked on this piece. Could I have worked on it longer? Yeah. Are we ever really ready? But it's just really interesting. I think that the challenges that go into this mentally, physically, emotionally, right? So I wanted to read a couple things that Elizabeth had sent me in our kind of wrap-up notes. After each session, she would send a little wrap-up, which I really appreciated. And our last session, she said, here's a review of what we went over today. Those 2 parts of you, perfection and play, working towards the same goal of having your best experience. You can look forward to seeing all the ways your unconscious finds to bring these intentions to work together. It is worth it, which was the little mantra we came up with, and knowing that you are so worth enjoying every last molecule from this experience and allowing pride to expand even now at all you have done and continue to do. And this last piece was really interesting. And Kirsten, I believe her last name is Kemp, but she was one of the judges, and she's also a mindfulness coach and ballet teacher. She was talking about this at the festival, how anxiety and fear, they have very similar symptoms in the ways in which they show up in the body. So I love this. So Elizabeth says, renaming feelings to allow for anxiety and excitement to merge into a new feeling that allows you to perform your best. So I just thought that was really beautiful. And she was so encouraging throughout, as were all of the people that I have just mentioned. And it really does take a village. Did I need all this extra help? Probably not. I could have just done it with Sean, but was it useful? Was it beneficial? Was it enjoyable? Yes. Was it incredibly hard? Absolutely, because I wasn't just learning Lilac Fairy. I was also learning 2 group pieces, and we were learning these on Zoom April, May, and June. And it was a Swan Lake piece, so it was my first point piece away from the bar. It was really my first point work away from the bar. And I worked a lot on that with my private point teacher, Vanessa. And then, the other piece was Hallelujah, which was just really beautiful. That was in slippers on flat. And that was beautiful. Julie choreographed both, Julie of Broche Ballet. But it's not easy learning these 8 counts on Zoom. And then, trying to figure out kind of like the formations. That was the hardest part whenever we all got to Miami, of like practicing together, of like, say in Swan Lake, there were 5 different formations that we had to go to. So you're like dancing, you have the choreography down, but then you need to dance into different formations in different parts of the room. And it was just like, that was just mind boggling to me. At one point during one of the rehearsals of Hallelujah, I'm like still in the center, and like my group is against the wall, and my sweet Kristen is like beckoning me, come over here, we're over here. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like a little lost puppy. You just have those moments where you're like, I know the choreography, I just don't know where I'm supposed to be. So that was challenging, and I just was really kind of panicking late May, early June, because I'm like, I don't know this choreography yet. So, really honing in and trying to learn that. And then the last few weeks of my life, right? Late June was all about every spare moment I had was like, okay, try to get this. Okay, what are the arm movements? Where are we swanning? In what direction? It was just like, oh my gosh, it was like a tongue twister. And so that was, really the process. But I will say overall, I felt good at the dress rehearsal. And then I felt good the final night. I do have a few flubs that I'm bummed about, but overall I felt really good. And then, a friend of mine came, Denise Marie, another friend, Jennifer, they came to kind of watch the performance to watch the performance, which was so lovely. And then Tim was, of course, there, and he filmed the piece that you'll see online. And then, that evening, I just kind of threw my hat into the ring maybe a few weeks before the performance for the competition, because initially I wasn't going to, but then I was like, why not? I've worked hard on this, and I'll get a participatory ribbon. That's fine, right? But then, she's naming all these names for the beginner solo option, and then she names me, and I'm second place. I couldn't believe it. I was like so excited. A, because I never win things, and then, B, just, it felt like such a reward after so much hard work over the past 6 months. And so that felt, of course, like so good. Would I have still been happy if I'd gotten a participatory ribbon? I would have been. I worked really, really hard, and I would have been, but having this also just felt really good. It just felt like a reward for, all of that effort, all of that time. Now, one thing I wanted to do was answer your questions on Instagram stories I had put out. Like, do you have any questions? Because I'm going to be doing this podcast. And so one question I had, one person is like, do you still practice asana? And, one piece I forgot to mention during all of this is I'm having a hip replacement on July 22nd. And so I can't do certain things right now. And so do I practice asana? I do. I'm by no means anti-yoga, but my yoga practice has been replaced pretty much with ballet. I still do yoga. But, say even like sun salutations, which I love, there's so much like lunges, things along those lines are really, really hard on my hip. I'll say over the past 6 to 8 weeks, it's gotten really, really bad. And, so I'm doing all I can to kind of just like stay off of it. So do I still practice asana? Yes, I absolutely do. Is it a main part of my kind of movement practice? It's not right now. I do hope to incorporate it back because I do think it's a beautiful cross training with the ballet. And then, so another question was, how long have you studied and how many hours per week did you practice? Which I think I answered in this 1 to 3 hours per week. I practice this routine, but on average, I must do ballet 10 to 14 hours a week. 10 to 14 hours a week. Yeah. And then how long have I studied? Right. So I just really got back to this in 2018. And then Swin Myers, you pursuing this passion as an adult makes me wonder what I can try next, which I loved that, Nima. And then this was a great question too. What's your next performance goal? So I would love to do a solo next year. If I do go back to the Adult Ballet Festival, which I plan to, but I would like to do a solo on point, right? So I would like to challenge myself to get more comfortable on point. And so that would be my next performance goal. It's funny. It's like I had to remind myself, and I knew this. It's not like I'm auditioning for ABT. Do you know what I mean? Like this is like just like this really is supposed to be for joy and fun. But it doesn't mean that I didn't have a lot of like self-doubt creeping up, especially with like learning certain pieces of the choreographies for the group work. That's where I was getting really, really challenged and frustrated. But, what would be next, I think, would be, okay, come up with a fun new solo. And I do like the really slow, fluid, kind of classical pieces. The Dawn Q, which is what I did for that little baby performance we did at Washington Ballet, very fast. And I think it's just like a little jarring on my nervous system. So I like the luxuriousness of Lilac Fairy and really kind of long and beautiful like that. Okay, so over in the show notes, this has been a longer episode than planned, but I hope this is inspiring as you think about yourself and different ways in which you can also pursue a passion, right? That you're like, okay, it's not like I'm trying to become a professional. I just want to enjoy it. So over in the show notes, I have under mentioned in the show, the 2019 performance, Broche Ballet, which is who put on this wonderful ballet festival, BAE, Ballet Academy East out of New York City, Vitality Ballet, who does private point classes, The Whole Point, who is the peak performance coach, Elizabeth, who's lovely, the dancer next door, Olia, so she lives in Greece. She's really lovely also. And then Adult Ballet Collective, which is JoJo, which is kind of like on hiatus at the moment. But I also have a link to my podcast interview with her that you may enjoy if you're interested in kind of like the ballet lifestyle as a whole, which I love that concept. As you know, I love the yoga lifestyle, right? So it's like, how do we incorporate these things into our lives? And they're not just something we do on the side, right? They're just like, we truly embody. So journaling prompts that I want to share with you and I want to encourage, if you will download the worksheet, and there is a link to the worksheet in the show notes, and there's also quite a few photos that I pulled together for you that just kind of highlight the experience. So number 1, what helps me feel most alive? Number 2, what childhood passion would I like to reconnect with? Number 3, is there a class, camp, festival, or workshop that I could sign up for? And number 4, what level of discipline could I commit to? Would it be 1 hour a week? Would it be 1 hour a day? What feels doable, possible for you, but it's a little nudge outside your comfort zone? All right, so number 1, what helps me feel most alive? Number 2, what childhood passion would I like to reconnect with? Number 3, is there a class, camp, festival, or workshop I could sign up for? And number 4, what level of discipline could I commit to? Thank you all so much for tuning in. And I want to say a really big thank you to everyone who reached out on Thursday and sent sweet notes via either social media, text message, phone calls, etc. It means so much to me. And I felt very loved on my birthday, and that comes from you. So I just want to say a big thank you. And there's also links in the show notes, of course, to find me on Instagram and YouTube, along with my books and planner and clothing line. All right, loves, I want to encourage you to get out there and do beautiful things. And I want to say a big thank you for listening. And please drop me a note and let me know what resonated with you from this show, and if there's anything I can do to help support your dreams. All right, beautiful. Wishing you a delicious week ahead. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time. Bye-bye.